And I was fortunate that our teenage boys still really stayed attached to me, but they definitely need their dads. Come around 10, 11, they've got to start seeing how they're connected to their dads in order to see themselves because they know they're becoming a man.
And that's that age group 9 to 14 that scientists
Mm-hmm.
and researchers have discovered is so critical. When you go out into the world to see if the world knows who you are, they're bringing balance into the equation. They're leaving a maternal type influence that's predominant because they're in the home with the mom's everything. And now they're realizing that I need balance in my life. And that's the dad.
And they need that foundation of the dad early on. They definitely do, but it becomes more imperative about 10 to 11.
And that's better said, yeah.
Yeah.
So in our home, that happened many times. Cheri would be frustrated because she's trying to get the boys to obey, right?
Like I could motivate them their whole lives. And then all of a sudden, my motivation techniques, their attention to me is not like they're like, you're asking me to do what?
I wish you could see your face right now.
Yeah, it's just like, and then you walk and I say, I've been trying to get him to take out the trash for 3 hours now, and he just won't do it. I'm getting nowhere with him. And you walk, hey, son, what you doing? You got to get this trash out. And they're like, yeah, you're right, man. I'm on it. And it all of a sudden becomes this testosterone experience because they get to prove themselves. But for a mom to ask it just is nothing.
Yeah, and that, all we're suggesting here is, and I've had the mothers in my office just frustrated because they can't move the child left or right. And the delicate scenario that I find myself in is helping the father understand how to support the wife so the father and the mother become a singular unit.
And the principle behind it, so mothers, do not take offense when your sons and even your daughters ignoring you a little bit, is that they're growing to be independent. And so they are having to, as much as they still need their connection to you, they have to grow independent of you. And it always looks like ignoring, and it always looks like minor rebellions and things like that. I mean, yesterday was a great example.
Go ahead.
Well, and so I guess what I want to say is, as moms, don't turn that into an opportunity to become a victim.
And a nag.
And a nag. Yeah. Like, it's okay to drop it and let them have consequences. And it's okay to say, well, or to say, you got to take out the garbage before you do this and this, and then walk away. And it's that disengagement from that is more healthy than the constant engagement into it.
I want to jump on that because what I get in the office normally is the mothers won't let it go. And so they become a persecutor, a hovering person, a helicopter, a snowplow. And that creates anxiety and challenge after challenge, not only in the relationship, but in their internal psyche, because they don't want to become their mother. And then they either become the mother or the antithesis of the mother. So they go from hovering to chaos. In other words, we're suggesting you find a balance in the space.
Yeah.
And the one thing I felt that was an advantage is that you would let me know what was going on. We would talk about it.
Yeah.
And just out of full disclosure here, I wouldn't go in there, hey, you got to take the trash out. I'd ask them, what is going on? What have you been asked to do? Has she asked you to do X or Y? And then they just come to a realization. And then I don't have to force the hand, but it just...
But you could just say, hey, take the trash out, bud, and they would do it.
Right, but I don't want to go that direction because then I'm telling them what to do. He's, 17, 18, whatever. And dads, I guess I'm speaking to you now. If you help delegate to the child a little bit about what's going on, let them figure out, connect the dots, and then show support for the mom, your wife, it's going to look like the two of you are on the same page rather than, hey, just do this. Or another thing that I see is the dad's kind of sweeping because mom's been trying to get him to do something and there's tension in the air, right? Well, dad's sweeping and try to be the nice guy and try to be the friend, good guy, bad guy.
Yep.
That's horrible. Don't come in there and try to be your son's friend. This isn't a good cop, bad cop scenario. You're a parent. When your first objective is to be a friend, you cease to be a parent. So delegate to the child what needs to be done. Okay.
Yeah. And so you can see how, like, our protagonist, Lori, if she thinks she's right because she has to get all these people to do things, it's really easy to get sucked into that as a mom.
And that's what's happening with her. She's hovering to the point of snowplowing, and that's going to push your children away. So now, what was it like for you and your father? I'm not forgetting this.
Yeah. So my dad he had a He was a force to deal with. He had a very dominant feel. He was a heavy-footed man. So his presence,
literally and figuratively.
Literally and figuratively, when Dad walked in the door, you felt it and you knew it.
Yeah.
And there was kindness, but it was always heavy and a bit authoritative. Like you didn't want to disturb his space too much.
There's a difference between authoritative and authoritarian. He was authoritative.
Yes.
Authoritarian would be on the negative side.
But for me, especially, he shared his space in a way that was very inviting, but you didn't really have an option. But you knew that you were going to come out for the better for it. So if it meant like he had to go downstairs, the furnace isn't working, and he's going to wrangle that furnace. I always think of the scene of the dad in Christmas Story.
Yes.
So my dad wasn't swearing and he didn't get frustrated. He was cool and collective. He was the James Bond of the furnace.
Yes, he was.
And he's like, Cheri, I'm fixing the furnace. I need you to come on down. You're like, great. Stop playing Barbies to go fix the furnace. And you go down there and it's a lesson.
Uh-huh.
Now, this is what we're looking at. And do you know what this little piece is right here? You're like, I have no idea. I've never seen that. This is an orifice. This is a natural gas orifice. And the gas pressure, and then you've got this whole physics lesson.
I can hear his voice.
I know. And so I'm kind of like glassy-eyed, like I have no idea what I'm hearing. I'm 7 years old, but I know a lot about physics now. And, honestly, I did. I attribute all my engineering and scientific brilliance to my dad and those lessons because you didn't really have an option, but you learned a lot. And so that is a way to connect. I mean, it wasn't too overbearing and it wasn't too toxic, but it was a connection and it rooted me for life.
And it was his emotional connection to you because then he would quiz you afterwards.
Right, you always got to test.
And I remember watching those.
Yeah, and I want to add one piece. So that was my entire childhood. And we even had dinner time tests as kids. My dad would quiz us at the dinner table. We couldn't leave the table until we finished the quiz. I know you're laughing, but it's real. I had one sister she was the only one that had nerve to get up and leave the table and storm out sometimes. The rest of us also said like, ooh, I would never do that. But when things got emotionally hard as a teenager,
right,
it was my dad. Like that was the biggest surprise to me when I didn't get the score on an ACT test that I wanted and I was bawling in my room. It was my dad who came in, who ventured past that closed door into the crying teenage girl to comfort me. When I was upset about a letter I'd received from a boy and what he had written or something, and my heart was feeling like broken, it was my dad who came into that room and hugged me and held me in his arms.
Cheri's dad is very intellectual. He's the engineer mindset that I've referred to many times, oftentimes stuck in the head. But to his credit, he knew how to reach out and connect.
When it got bad,
huge.
He knew when to scoop you up. And when I was being bad, he knew how to sit me on the other side of his desk and lay it out in black and white and tell me what my consequences were.
And it was never yelling.
No.
You didn't have to yell. So I want to do the third entity as we're wrapping this up. The third entity is the parents. It's seen as a singular unit. So when mom and dad work in harmony, they speak the same language, they work together, they share their responsibility, they balance their strengths and weaknesses. The infant, the child, eventually learns teamwork, conflict resolution, and how to live in, work in, and thrive in relationships with others. How did they do in 1 minute or less? How did they do as an entity, singular entity?
So we're both, Frank and Lorna, had these great strengths. They were about 50-50 when it came as teamwork, because as a couple, they were very polar opposite in their interest levels, and yet they tried to support each other as best they could. Mm-hmm. But it was hard for them to support each other, and as kids, we saw that, and then they would be together on some things, and then in some things it tore them apart in how they disciplined us. And some of those choices were not okay. They were harmful because they weren't always a team.
And we're going to pick this up in the next segment. Thanks so much for listening. Remember, you can get access to this course at himmerinstitute.com, along with other courses, because we're building them as we speak at this point in time. So thanks again for listening. Remember, you are 100% responsible. you're going to find out, hopefully in the next segment, what is the one thing you can do to deal with the toxicity within your home. We look forward to chatting with you in the next segment.
Doubt is a broken record that plays inside my head. I try to turn it down, but I can't quite drown it out. I'm tortured every day, these never-ending worries pulling on my sleeve.